So, if you all remembered when we did the big get to know you, two of the ladies who got the most oohs and ahs were these two right here, Megan and Michelle. So we're going to hear a little bit more about what they actually do in DC. Megan has reminded me several times that she is not President Obama's personal IT person. So tell us just
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's good. Is he still using a BlackBerry, or
he's not? But he also proclaimed himself a nerd, and he's proud of it. Last week in Pittsburgh at the Frontiers Conference. So.
And he's spoken at South by Southwest, which I don't think any other president has. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing these last few years, and sort of a state of the state from each of you on how we're doing on the digital front.
Yeah, the president's really focused on how to modernize government, and so the CTO job is really a catalyst job or a capacity building job. So whether it's policy conversations, for example, net neutrality, or we just launched the open source policy out of the federal CIO office, all of that work in policy, having tech folks in the room during those conversations has been a big part. We created Dennis and the president created Tech Policy Task Force, which is actually a group in the White House of all the techies being able to lead policy together with our colleagues. The second one is really capacity building and modernizing government. So creating the United States Digital Service, 18F, Presidential Innovation Fellows. So President Kennedy created the Peace Corps. We saw Johnson with White House Fellows. So the Presidential Innovation Fellows are a set of almost entrepreneurs in residence who are all over. We had over 100 of them, front-end, back-end design thinkers, upgrading agencies. And then the third area is capacity building American people, things like Tech Hire, Computer Science for All, the Maker Movement, Nation of Makers, a lot of different work like that, as well to get more people into the kind of jobs we're into and we're part of, and being part of the 21st century modern professions, community college, et cetera, but also using, he was saying this at South by Southwest, how do we use the methodologies that we have, sharing economy, open source, design thinking, to solve our hardest problems together. You know, rural child poverty, connectivity, et cetera. And so bringing those practices, which was really his South by Southwest call. And Michelle's been doing amazing things in the patent world that are like this.
So President Obama is one of the most, if not the most tech-savvy president that we've ever had. And right now, you all know this in your businesses, but data is really the currency of the future, right? The companies that collect more data, that bigger data, more relevant data, are able to have competitive advantage in terms of offering customized services, better functionality, and so forth. And the president recognized the value of data generally, and in particular, data gathered by the government. And if you think about it, data gathered by the government is some of the most reliable, accurate, and consistently gathered data around. And the United States Patent and Trademark Office has been gathering information and data about inventions that you all create for over 200 years. So if you go back, you can get back to 1790 information about all the inventions that ever occurred and filed for patent in the United States, not only in the United States, but also overseas, because overseas companies file in the United States because the market is so important. So if you want a glimpse into the future and you want to know what the competitive landscape is, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has basically published patent data since 1790, the last 40 years of which is text searchable, and we've launched an application programming interface where anybody with basic programming skills can mine this data. So if you want to talk about competitive trends, you typically invent something and you file for a patent right away. That's well before a product is launched. So if you want a glimpse into the future, you know who's invented what, who's collaborating with whom, which businesses, which academic institutions, and you can have literally a national global map of who's doing what research where in a meaningful and significant way. You overlay that data with other data such as financing data from venture capital funding, from institutions such as Gates or NIH, and perhaps with Securities and Exchange filing information, and the combination of data sets is very powerful. So really unleashing government data is, I think, a tremendous resource for businesses in terms of knowing competitive landscape, investment opportunities, and that's what President Obama recognized, and that's what we're following up on.
Are companies already doing this? Are they already utilizing the data in this way?
So the problem is in the patent information has been available for a long time. The problem is, in the old days, the patent was literally in a shoebox, held by Thomas Jefferson, our first patent examiner, and you had to go down to the patent office, pull that out, and get a copy of it. Well, that's obviously not okay. So now we're making it available online, and then we're now making it text searchable. But even patent by patent is not enough. You really want aggregate trends, because that's how you get the valuable information. And that's the newness of it, which is providing the information in a manner that you all can use and give you competitive information about the landscape, which is very, very powerful.
One of the things that's, so the president's opened over 200,000 data sets and came from executive order, and the agency's responding. One of my favorite things that's happened is Department of Education, working on behalf of our children and their student loan challenges, was able to get these APIs, the application interfaces, for data sets so that students could see, as they were choosing colleges, they could see this new idea called College Scorecard. How much does this school cost? What are the graduation rates? What kind of money do people make when they graduate? So that they could do much more buyer beware as they were looking at that. And so instead of the Department of Education launching a website, they launched these 3 APIs and engaged all of the top, a lot of the top app makers in the education space to include this as features in tools there. So, and they also launched a reference design. So you can go to College Scorecard, but you can also go and search now and see these data sets come through. So we've been working with all of the agencies, recently Census. I mean, think about Census. Census is the big data thing, hundreds of years of our data. When you walk into the U.S. Department of Census, there is the Constitution is actually up on the wall. We'll count the people and decide the resources fairly. And then you go in, and they actually have an innovation space next to their cafeteria that they just built, and they've had 400 projects go through there. And so they now have software developer kit on top of city data. And so the cities are now collaborating. So even though it's early, and only some groups are doing it here in Los Angeles, extraordinary work, both state and local, and also using these data. We're seeing the beginning. It feels like, the beginning of the internet felt maybe in 1997. A bunch of people were doing it, and you could see it was a something, but it wasn't as apparent yet. But the Opportunity Project, which Census just launched, opportunity.census.gov, is all kinds of things like education, or the HUD team, Housing and Urban Development, working on mobility, but they're working with Redfin and Zillow, Airbnb. So really engaging the developer community that we see so vibrantly in the commercial sector, now coming on top of social sector.
And there's been a lot of engaging the developer community, and there's also been a lot of, just as we see right here in front of us, talent going from Silicon Valley and elsewhere, but a lot of tech talent going to DC. You kind of have interesting connections all around. They've followed each other throughout their entire careers, apparently, because you went to school to college together, and you were at Google together, and then you just couldn't stay apart from each other, so you went to DC. But why did you jump ship to DC, and how has the president and this administration been able to attract not just you, but a lot of other talent?
I will say that I think there's a huge benefit to be gained by people from the public sector going to the private, and people from the private sector going to the public. So again, Patent and Trademark Office, 200 plus years old, right? Coming from Silicon Valley Tech and from a big data company, I brought those big data techniques to the PTO. So we examine patents, we apply legal judgment and we make very tough technical and legal judgments, and we get about 600,000 patent applications per year. We issue 335,000 patent applications. We have 1 million pending patent applications, and we have 8.5 thousand examiners. So we are literally now measuring all of their decisions, and we can provide better quality and better consistency, which is like what you do in your businesses. You're looking at data to provide better quality and better consistency. And I think having come from tech and the business world has helped me to transform an agency that is literally 200 years old. So these perspectives are valuable, and vice versa as well.
Yeah,
And Megan, you moved for the good weather?
The great weather. I'm from Buffalo, so.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't
I'm
up
gonna be okay
great.
with anything. So, really people do things, right? And so what the president could see was that at the principal level, this group of the techies weren't in with their colleagues. I mean, the people in government are extraordinary. Some of the most amazing people I've ever worked with. And so, but the tech folks were in the contractor space or buried and not able to support with asking the right questions in the room. Like a Surgeon General, you don't want all the doctors in government, but 1 or 2 would be great, especially seniors, so that we have that knowledge in our architecture and our planning of what we're going to do, what we're going to choose, just like you want a top economist, you want a top lawyer, you want a top operator. I mean, we have amazing people. Secretary Jewell ran REI, Secretary Pritzker. But you want that tech team in, and we've been able to bring We have over 400 people in government who used to work at Amazon, Facebook, Google, Twitter, Dropbox. And not like myself, none of them really intended ever to work in government. We didn't think of that. That wasn't a construct. A lawyer, if you look at a resume of most lawyers, there's a point where someone clerks and they work in the judicial system, but we didn't have that habit in tech, and we needed to, it was something the president really saw as a deficiency in the sector and in government, and how could we bring that together? So there's this idea of tour of duty, whether you come as an innovation fellow for a year, or United States Digital Service, or CIO, or other places, come and serve in this space, because the government will only be what we make it. And we're seeing extraordinary things because of that. So another area of sort of data innovation is the area of justice, with the challenges that we have in the country with policing. So Presidential Innovation Fellows saw that Dallas and LA were opening use of force data, officer-involved shooting, other kinds of data sets, and create transparency and better relationship with the community. And so we were able to kind of do community of practice, like the open source community works. Now there's over 100 jurisdictions who have a bi-weekly call and working on opening these data sets to their communities and having these complex conversations. Additionally, on the enterprise data, we found that all around, it's something true in our country, Scout and Scale, there are people in the country who solved almost every problem if you could find them. So if you think like a venture capitalist and you go find that person and then share their existence. My favorite, Miami-Dade, went from 7,000 people in prison to 4,900 closed to jail by treating mental health and substance abuse differently with a stabilization unit for their officers to bring people to. Now we have over 100 jurisdictions in data-driven justice, using data in the enterprise level, talking to each other every week and solving problems in new ways.
So there's been a lot of progress with what you've done, the digital service, and at the same time, we keep reading about our crumbling infrastructure. So I just saw this report, latest report card from the American Society of Civil Engineers. We gave ourselves a D+. I guess that's better than an F. But why haven't these same sort of, the outreach and the combination of private and public, why hasn't that happened on that front when it comes to, water systems and power grids and transportation?
People are there are pockets, like South Bend is such a good example of a pocket. There's pockets of great innovation on infrastructure. Part of the reason why they were in Pittsburgh is because some of the self-driving car and some of the innovation around not only smart cities, but smart communities, smart inclusive communities, TechCar, the short course program to get more people into coding, et cetera. So there's a lot of local innovation going on. There's challenges with Congress funding infrastructure specifically. So that's an area that we have to push really on all of our elected officials to get more of that money funded. It's critically important. The president talks about it constantly. And then there's innovation to be had. I mean, the South Bend example is literally, they needed to build a second sewer system for $100 million, but they didn't have the funds. And so instead, they went to the Notre Dame team and the Metro Lab partnership, cities and universities working together in this cool new way. And they found that if they put sensors on the sewer system and pumps for a couple $1 million, they could load balance the sewer system and not have to build a parallel one for storm overrun and still meet EPA regulations, but with this new solution.
I'll add on the international front in terms of infrastructure that is so sorely lacking overseas. We've got this Patents for Humanity program, which basically gives incentives to inventors to address some of the hardest issues in infrastructure and humanity, clean water, right, sewage, drainage, all these issues. So there are government initiatives that are designed to address these issues, both domestic and internationally.
Okay, and just real quick, one word answers. The burning question on everybody's minds for what happens post-election, will you stay in D.C. or are you coming back home to Silicon Valley?
I'm running through the finish line.
Yeah,
that's
our
one-word answer.
Comment, but I just hired a couple of people. We are like running. We have the baton. When you're in power, you got to run, and it's fourth quarter, and the president says, great things happen in the fourth quarter. We just did a 100-day toast, and they said, it might be the last 2 minutes, but we got 2 minutes. So we are running, and then we'll keep doing this kind of work.
And you do get the most done at the end.
Yeah.
That is true. That's very rare.
And the last thing maybe for this audience, there's a lot of work.
In 2 seconds.
Yeah, that we're doing around diversity and inclusion in data. And so, I know these guys are going to tweet some interesting graphics about media, but using the data to see this challenge, the unconscious bias that we have will really help us get out of this.
And catch Megan later if you want to hear more about that. Thank you guys so much. I'm sorry we're out of time.